The last chance to capture Kashmir. In terms of Pakistan, that was the 1965 war. They believed that India, which had been weakened by the 1962 Chinese occupation, and the crises in the northeastern states, would be unable to fight or prevent Pakistan from invading Kashmir. But when the battle broke out, something completely different happened. They were not only unable to capture Kashmir, but they also suffered heavy setbacks in most of the parts by the Indian counterattacks. In this video we look at what motivated Pakistan to embark on a war against India and how India began to retaliate. If you are watching this video and have not yet subscribed to the channel, please consider subscribing to the channel. It will be an inspiration to us, as we work to bring more comparable videos to you. Since the moment of independence from Britain, Pakistan has been making various attempts to make Kashmir its own. The first of these was the Indo-Pak War of 1947. But in the wake of heavy counter-attacks by India, they were unable to achieve their goal in that war. Despite losing the 1947 war and retreating, Pakistan's political and military leadership was not ready to give up the dream of capturing Kashmir. They believed that if Pakistan was to be complete, the whole part of Kashmir should come under their control. But they could not have made such a move by challenging the Indian army, which was well ahead of Pakistan's army. It was then that Field Marshal Ayub Khan overthrew the civilian government in Pakistan and declared himself as president. That development was something that gave the Pak army a lot of excitement. It was vital to make Kashmir an emotional subject for Pakistanis in order for the military dictatorship to garner acceptance. They claimed that only a military leader would be willing to take Kashmir from India. In 1960, despite pressure from other army generals, Ayub Khan was reluctant to start a second Kashmir war. Ayub Khan aspired to improve his image in the eyes of the world. Ayub recognized at the time that if he failed to do such a foolish thing to India, it would ruin his image among the world's nations. Furthermore, there was still a significant military imbalance with India. So they continued their preparations for the Kashmir mission. At that time the US maintained very close relation to Pakistan. USA required Pakistan as a tool to counter the Soviet Union's activities in the oil-rich Middle East. So they helped Pakistan a lot both militarily and financially. The United States provided its tanks, submarines, saber jets and other weapons, while Britain provided its Type 80 air defense system to Pakistan. All this took place under the pretense of Cento Alliance, which was formed by Britain to counter Soviet dominance. Pakistan was an important member of this organization. Furthermore, NATO assigned its best military specialists to train Pakistani forces. In short, by the mid-1960s, Pakistan's armed forces had evolved into one of the most advanced forces in South Asia. India's defeat in the Sino-Indian War of 1962 further favored Pakistan. With the Chinese occupation of Aksai Chin, an important part of East Kashmir, Pakistan assumed that it would not be too difficult to conquer the remaining parts of Kashmir. Pakistan also believed that China would come to its aid in the event of another war with India. Pakistan became closer to China after 1962, with the goal of becoming an adversary ally of the enemy. They also gave China the Shaksgam Valley in Pakistan-occupied Kashmir to boost their ties. Nehru has died at a time when China-Pakistan relations remain warm. Pakistan thought that his successor Lal Bahadur Shastri would be very weak. But the reality was quite the opposite. In the aftermath of the war defeat with China, Shastri joined hands with the Soviet Union to initiate a comprehensive overhaul of the Indian armed forces. Shastri also sent Indian scientists to Russia for training as part of India's nuclear program. Although India and Russia tried their best to keep the information secret, the CIA knew about it and immediately passed the information to Pakistan. Ayub Khan was well aware that the capture of Kashmir would never happen if India acquired nuclear weapons and increased its military power. So they decided it was the time to implement their Kashmir plan. Pakistan knew that capturing Kashmir through a massive military deployment would not be easy. They devised another plan to find out how India and the Soviet Union, which had become India's friend, would react to Pakistan's moves. As part of this plan, Pakistan launched a massive attack in the Run of Kutch region of Gujarat on the morning of April 9, 1965. Pakistan had hoped for a major Indian reply, but this did not materialize. As a result, they were able to go deeper into Indian territory in Kutch. The Shastri government was unable to take any effective military action due to food shortages, interstate disputes, riots and Naga extremism in the country at that time. Therefore, this incident created a great deal of political turmoil in India. India approached the United Nations and regained control within weeks. However, Ayub Khan and the Pakistani military leadership perceived this cold response from the Indian side as a weakness of the Shastri government. Then they decided to put the Kashmir plan into action. They planned a two-phase strategy. The first step was to bring Pakistani soldiers dressed as tribals to Kashmir and infiltrate them as locals to illuminate their communal sentiments and incite a revolt against India. This was the same strategy adopted by Pakistan in the First Kashmir War. According to the plan, on August 5, 1965, about 30,000 Pakistani troops crossed the line of control into Kashmir. They were instructed to turn into 9 groups and attack various parts of the Kashmir Valley. The aim was to seize the radio station with the help of locals, destroy strategic bridges and roads, and disrupt communications in the valley. But the Kashmir people disrupted Pakistan's plan. They detained the Pak army and handed over to Indian army. Only one of the 19 succeeded in wreaking havoc, but the Indian army was soon able to wipe them out. Realizing that Operation Gibraltar would be a futile blunder, the remaining Pakistani soldiers fled back to Pak-occupied Kashmir. Although Pakistan's move was not effective, the Indian leadership decided that Pakistan should be punished for the infiltration and the ensuing trouble in the Kashmir Valley. On August 15, 1965, Indian troops crossed the line of control in Kargil and launched heavy attacks on military posts in Pakistan-occupied Kashmir. The attacks were aimed at conquering 3 strategically important high mountains in order to prevent future infiltration into Kashmir. These 3 hills were captured by Pakistan in the First Kashmir War. They used the passes of these mountains to infiltrate militants into Kashmir Valley. Pakistan could observe the Jammu and Kashmir highways movements from high vantage points on these mountains and fire at Indian forces below. The Indian forces also wanted to reclaim the Hajipur Pass, which connects Pakistan-occupied Kashmir to the rest of India. After capturing 2 of the 3 hills from Pakistan, India began battling for the Hajipur Pass. Under the cover of military firing, the Indian army dropped para brigades across the Hajipur Pass at night. Through a strong and strategic attack, the Indian army recaptured the area within a few days. When India took control of Hajipur, Pakistan realized that Operation Gibraltar had been a huge failure for them. On the other hand, the Indian army was not about to back down. The next aim was Muzaffarabad, which was only 8 kilometers from Hajipur Pass. Pakistan feared that if India recaptured Muzaffarabad, the capital of Pakistan-occupied Kashmir, the entire region would fall under Indian control. To impede India's military push to Muzaffarabad, Pakistan has decided to carry out the second phase of its Kashmir strategy. On September 1, 1965, about 3 am, the Pakistani army crossed the line of control, and launched a major attack in Jammu and Kashmir's Cham sector. The operation included a large number of infantry battalions, modern tanks, and heavy artillery to support them. The Indian troops could not prevent the sudden attack as their numbers were very small. As a result, they had to leave the area and retreat. The Pak army was able to take the Chenab River Bridge and the town of Akhna, which were the Indian army's primary supply lines. India's retaliation for this was horrendous. First time in history, India replied by deploying its air force to the front lines of the battlefield. The Indian Air Force wiped out the Pakistani infantry, which were moving towards Jammu accompanied by heavy artillery and tanks. Pak starfighters and Sabre jets attacked Indian troops and air bases in retaliation. But the well-trained, agile, and daring Indian Air Force was able to repel them all. Moreover, on September 6, the Indian Army crossed the international border in Punjab and opened a new war front. The Indian invasion to Pak Punjab was accompanied by heavy artillery fire and tank formations. The Indian Army advanced quickly by inflicting heavy casualties on the Pakistani army and soon reached only 14 kilometers away from Lahore. This move by the Indian Army and the infiltration of the Indian Air Force and the deployment of new troops by India to retake the Chumb sector put a lot of pressure on the Pakistan army. Pakistan had never expected India, which had been labeled as weak, would make such an aggressive move. As a result, Pakistan's military leadership was forced to halt the movement in Kashmir and concentrate on Pak Punjab. The fighting continued for a few more weeks, but it was clear that victory was on the side of the Indians, who had seized 2,000 square kilometers of land. Months later, things returned to normal with the Tashkent Agreement signed between India and Pakistan, mediated by the Soviet Union. One thing was clear to the world with that war: Pakistan could never defeat India even in the India's weakest position.